So why don't we start with Effie? Will you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your company, and then we'll dig into it after we go through the introductions.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Effie Kikas with the Cigna Group. I lead the TA enablement team, which comprises of TA operations, employer brand recruitment marketing, contingent labor, and our TA PMO. I am based in this area of the country and looking forward to connecting with you guys today.
Greg Muccio, if you're not tired of me already, I'm tired of me, and so now you know how my family feels, but y'all get to go home today, and that's good. I lead TA at Southwest Airlines, been there 21 years. I have approximately a 300-person organization. Besides all the hiring, frontline hiring we do as well, I just saw last night, we have a candidate experience recruitment marketing team. I lead contingent workforce. We have a K through college program, a diversity COE, the career mobility team that we'll talk about today, and then also another team, a sourcing team, and then another team that works on early career initiatives. Think ab initio, think apprenticeships, that type of thing. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Hi everybody, I'm Colleen Stratton. I'm the head of workforce development for SEI. We are a local customer. We are in Oaks, Pennsylvania. We have just under 5,000 employees worldwide, 35 of whom are in the Oaks office. Our company is famous for our original CEO saying that he hated HR and firing the whole HR team and all of our administrative assistants in 1994. So my journey in the 16 years that I've been with SEI has been very different because we've started we're not called HR, we're called workforce development, but we started the workforce development team with 3 people when I joined, and now we have a team of 70, and we're still growing as an organization, and part of that has been trying to make sure that we're hiring predominantly technology and finance professionals, and we've been in the war for talent for the last couple of years, and it's been very key to us to be able to provide an experience to our candidates and our employees that can help us compete in that war.
Awesome, thank you. That's a great story. I still chuckle at, and what a journey. So Effie, let's start with you and Cigna. I'm still super intrigued and still kind of floored by kind of that outcome of, hey, you know what? It's hard to find a job when you're an employee at Cigna, but what you've been able to do with the EX platform and the success you've had. Talk about that, because I think some of these people may not have heard that story, or you need to hear it again. And then I want to dig into that just a little bit from a kind of an executive level.
Sure. So we launched EX last year, and the main reason why we were, the main problem was it was easier to find jobs externally than it was internally for our employees. And if you think about a lot of the tools that were in the marketplace, they were really externally focused. And we said, geez, what if we did the same thing that we do for our externals for our employees? And part of the challenge for our employees, Cigna's a large company, we're 70,000 employees in many, many countries. We have over 2,000 job profiles, so it was just very overwhelming for employees to figure out, where do they fit in? Okay, if I'm currently a HR advisor, I guess I could be an HR senior advisor, but sort of outside of that architecture, they would not think, oh, well, maybe I should also be a marketer, or maybe I could also be a technologist. And so the platform through Phenom really sort of enabled us to help talent identify roles that were what I'll call non-traditional, and really help cross-pollinate talent across different business lines, and then also different sort of job categories. What was the other part of the question, Jess?
Well, let me ask, part of it is now you've got over 60% of your total internal population that have now gone on, and they have actually put their talent kind of pieces together on the platform. But can you talk about the work that you needed to do? Was there a light bulb with your executive team that finally said, you need to get this done? Or was it something that you had to go and kind of beat down the door and say, we are missing the boat. We have this leaky bucket that we want to start to fill and keep filling?
I would say it was a little bit of both.
Okay.
So, we sort of went to the executive team and said, we need to do this. They knew that we had problems, right? Because, through things like our employee engagement survey, our employees were saying, I don't feel maybe the process is fair, I find it difficult, I want it to be easier. So we knew that these were problems that our employees had raised, and we came to say, hey, we think we have a solution to solve these problems.
Yeah.
And when I say we, I think this is probably an important part. So I sit in talent acquisition. The we was a coalition of HR from different areas. So talent acquisition, talent management, learning, and a technology team. So on that project, and as we've continued that project, we have 4 pillars of sponsorship across each different area. So we're really working together to think about that employee experience. And you've probably heard me say this, employees don't care what part of HR you sit in. They care about their own experience, right, in their own journey.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to get out of our own way
Yeah.
to, really provide and think about who are we trying to service here? We're trying to service the employee.
Yeah.
So how do we provide that experience? So
Yeah, with these false demarcations between divisions that employees don't see. So I want to pull that string a little bit with you, Colleen, and you, Greg. Oftentimes, talent acquisition is the priority for executives. How many people are you hiring? How many people are you hiring? How do you reprioritize, keep that moving and reprioritize and have the executives have the same passion for the people that I think sometimes a CEO goes, well, they're already inside, so I got them. I don't have to think about it. I think that's part of the mentality. Is that a sense that you had to kind of really demand that they pay attention to this, or did the market start making them? They read in the Wall Street Journal that, boy, people are leaving companies. What was that battle like, or maybe not a battle at all, to bring alignment and then the time, talent, and treasure you needed to get that done?
I'll talk first for just a moment. So in 2017, that was when we first met Phenom, we were looking to modernize our front end, and a lot of things were going on. One of the statistics that we looked at was our internal mobility index. So we created a new index to use that we could measure not just people that moved from one department to another, but also if you were promoted from one function to another. And it was very low, below, it was a single digit, and it probably rhymes with the word free. So we had very little internal movement going on, and that was an issue for us for a couple reasons. I mean, we needed succession planning, we needed leaders to have broader experience. And so we started focusing on internal mobility and the platform and making sure that we were making that experience good for our employees. And the saying that I always like to use with that is, we want to spend as much time and energy recruiting our own employees as we do people that are not already at the company. And I'm proud to say that last year, with the help of Phenom, our internal mobility index was 30%. And I just ran it for the first quarter, because we're going to report it quarterly, and it's at 35. Now, I don't really want it to go any higher than that. I would like it to be a third, right? So a third external hiring, a third internal mobility, and a third promotion within your existing job track, which we were 35% for this quarter, non-competitive promotion, and 30% external hiring. So we have just seen, I just, since the numbers are in my head, we had a little bit under 200 hires for the first quarter. We had 12,666 candidates in the pipeline, and 37% of those candidates were diverse, and about 30% of those were females. So we're trying to figure out what's going on with the females right now. That's just a big part of where I'm spending my time, to make sure that we're recruiting diversely, especially at the director level and above, and the entry level for us. Because we want to have more women leadership at SEI specifically. But I was really happy to see that, and we've multiplied the participation from 200 internal candidates to over 2,000. It's been really great.
Awesome. And Greg, as you kind of give a response around that kind of executive champion and how that works, think about tables. I think there's enough content that's come off the stage. Love to have you raise your hand if you have a question. I'd love you just to let me know, because we can start that open mic a bit right now too. Greg?
Yeah, for us, I don't think there was really any issue on whether we should. Southwest has a long history of wanting to be able to promote from within and do that particular piece. I think it was really the how, right? Because we went from a small, cute little company to, we now have 65,000 employees, 100 and some locations plus in the United States. And it had just grown, right, where it was really harder, and actually it was really one of the first conversations as we were implementing Phenom internal mobility didn't exist, and I was talking to the team going, well, I need to see something because I cannot have external candidates have a better experience than what our internals were. And I remember talking to different folks at Phenom and said, every single thing that you sold me on the why for Phenom exists internally. The same kind of thing, the profile, the recommendations, all that particular piece. And so really for us, that's just really how are we going to go about doing it. And so a lot of it was just kind of creating that awareness. And then ultimately, we created, they're coming up on our 2-year anniversary of this team in April, but it's our career mobility team. And so we actually have a team of 9 advisors, and think of a career center at a college. That's exactly what they do. That's their full-time job, is employees come to them, and the mission of the career mobility team, is to inspire and prepare and engage our employees in some form of new career. And what's really interesting for us from a selling point too, is it's a very big selling point when we're talking to an external candidate, because here's the reality. Almost anybody that you are interviewing today is thinking about their next job in the company with you, and if they don't see a path to that, they're not interested. So is probably, as outside of salary, is probably in the top 3 questions that we get. And so that part was easy, Jess. It was, and they got it. But seeing the new world and not, what do you mean someone won't, sit in their same job for 7 years and then we'll let them know when they're ready. It's like, that's not how that works anymore.
Great.
Yeah, so Colleen?
Yes.
Yeah, so I had a quick question. You had mentioned kind of those early days in 1993 or 4.
94.
94, the whole HR function gets wiped out and it turns into 3, now it's 70. So the founder footprint is a big piece of how organizations kind of evolve and continue on. So I just wonder, how is talent acquisition different at this place where there was this kind of very abrupt kind of shock to HR and how it had to reinvent itself?
Well, I've talked to, whenever we all talk to each other, we always say we don't like what HR used to be, right, in the 80s or the 90s, where it was more about policing the organization. And I know we all share this view, but I look at HR as a sales team. And so we structure everything like a sales team. And I think that that's really made it feel a lot differently. I always remember I would have this little question that I would ask anybody that was an HR partner. I would say, tell me about the worst employee relations case that you ever investigated. And if they looked like they were rubbing their hands together and they couldn't wait to tell me about it, I knew that wasn't a person that was going to work well on my team. Because it has to be about really representing the company to the employees and the employees back to the company. That's where we add just so much value. I think HR was born again at SEI because of the tech boom. So we actually also sell technology to the financial services industry, and we had massive amounts of hiring. And so actually I was a consultant at SEI before I was an employee for about 7 years. I had teams of recruiters on site that were hiring tech. Actually, my VP of HRIS, who's in the room, Chris Carey, was one of the people that I supported during that heavy boom. He was a senior director down in the tech area. And that just led us to realize that we needed more and more of it. So, how it evolved with me was that I was doing this technical recruiting and being an HR partner as a consultant, and they hired me as an employee, and they said, we need you to still do all that. And that's how the HR partner business model was born at SEI. And people started hearing that they really liked the work that was going on in these different divisions and wanted to get on board too. So it's really grown very organically. And it's continuing to grow. One of my teammates that's in the room right now is a director of marketing. We just added her to the HR team because it's that important that our message is crystal clear. I'm not going to preaching to the choir here, but it's that important that we put an emphasis, especially with the platform that we're buying from Phenom. We need so much content to make that very personal for all of our employees and outside hires. And to me, that's the next evolution for us, is that we're now having a marketing function in HR because that message is just so important.
I appreciate you guys being here. Ray Maloof, I'm the Vice President of Talent Acquisition at Lowe's. Our organization is almost 300,000 employees, most of which are hourly employees distributed throughout the U.S. in stores and supply chain facilities. So I guess what I'm thinking about right now is, how do you touch those who don't sit behind a desk, right? Like I'm thinking about frontline workers, and is this a bifurcated experience for those salaried knowledge workers versus store associates? I think we have a ton of great opportunities and developmental programs. I think our associates just don't know about them, and I'm trying to think through how might I get them to fill out profiles? How might I get them to know about what opportunities exist, and how might we know more about them? Like what their interests are, what their career path desires are, their experiences before Lowe's. I'm really curious to hear from you.
So over half, probably even close rate of 60 to 70% of the people that utilize our career mobility team right now are from the operations. And one of the things, that was where the big problem was, right? Because they are so far away from headquarters, they work shifts at different times, and so part of it was like, hey, all the same type of tools that we might use to engage an external candidate, the video capabilities, the chatbot, the texting, that actually works even better internally because most of them don't check their corporate email like that. It goes to spam a lot of times, right? But part of what we were able to, what our mission was when we did it was we've got to create awareness because they're busy or whatever. They're not seeing the career job board. And so part of it is just being able to use that tool, allowing them to set up preferences and awareness. We do a lot of virtual info sessions so that they can join at any time, and we'll even record it for them. And then I have my career mobility team is actually coast to coast, so that I've got a West Coast person, I've got East Coast and all that, so that we're covering, you know, all of our geographies. But on every single one of our, and we have a landing page in our internal career site powered by Phenom just for this team where they can click a button to book an appointment, that kind of deal. But every one of our job postings at the top of it has a, you want to engage with the career mobility team to be able to do that. And where we've seen a ton of power from it is helping us with frontline supervisors, because so many of those folks haven't had the interview experience, they don't have the confidence, and it's really, especially in our ground operations, which I would consider, you know, very similar to probably your store type of things, just having folks having the confidence that they could put in for a position, it's been really useful.
Effie, I think you might have a perspective on this too with the work that you had to do.
Yeah, I was gonna add a little bit. We don't have nearly as many as you guys, but you know, at Cigna, we have so many different business lines. We do have warehouse workers, and so in our world, I think would probably be the most equivalent. And as we went through, we did a lot of testing and learning, and a lot of different types of pilots. And the thing that I was constantly reminding the team of is, not everyone is an office employee. Even our call center folks, I mean, I don't consider them as an office employee in the sense of, you know, everything is monitored and they have all these restrictions. And so we purposely partnered with different areas of the business to sort of pilot out those. And it was a very different approach of how we rolled it out for the knowledge workers, for the call center workers, for the warehouse workers. And so, you know, I would definitely encourage to like test and learn and have a different approach, not a one size fits all.
Awesome, thank you. We got a question right here.
So I was curious on the Cigna story. You mentioned that your business case or reason to going to the EC and saying, hey, we need to really look at our talent, we really need to focus on skills, was due to some of the scores or employee. So have you been in the journey long enough to see if the things that you've implemented has either given you high value insights or has changed the employee perspective or sentiment? And if so, what is it, and does it support the hypothesis that you made or help you to generate a new position going forward?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, so it'll be a year next month. So yes, we've run it long enough. We actually changed some of the questions in our employee engagement survey to get to, you know, were we successful in terms of how our employees feeling? And we saw positive movement. So we're really pleased with that. And then we're also measuring how talent is moving across different business lines, job families, and we're seeing all positive movement in that as well. And then we're also measuring how employees are hearing about jobs, which is really cool. And so we've learned that, this shouldn't be a surprise, but the most effective source of hire is the current manager. So we're really excited about that from a culture perspective, right? We want managers to be helping their employees with their career growth. And that the AI has attributed to 10% of the job moves, so jobs that people wouldn't have sort of identified otherwise. And then, of course, we've, just a lot of anecdotal stories where people are like, I would have never considered this job, right? But it was presented to me, and then, they go on and they tell us their story. So we've got a lot of really great proof points.
Are you doing testimonials as well, video and using that?
We've done some testimonials, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's a great use of the tool and the platform, that capability.
You could check us out on our social channels, the Cigna group, on Facebook or Instagram. We post employee stories of how they've
It's my
changed
number
their
one
career.
Instagram site in the world here. What are you talking about?
Thank you. I'm Jay Erdley with Pontoon Solutions, and I have two questions. I'm going to throw them both out there because I'm worried Jess will steal the mic after the first question. In our company, I think we actually confuse internal mobility, and I like the distinction you made. I think we confuse internal mobility with inline promotions. Now we're talking more about how to open that up, but there is some resistance from business unit leaders creating a lot of fluidity across lines. Like they love highlighting how they've promoted their employees up, but now being a good company steward and letting that happen left and right, there's some resistance. So I'd love any thoughts on how that you created that corporate buy-in. It's obviously playing collective, but that's easier said than done. And then the second is, and I'm kind of thinking about the Lowe's example here. We really see the companies that are winning this talent game thinking about their talent as not just their FTEs, but their entire ecosystem, which may include contractors, partners, consultants. Are there any good case studies, good examples, good wins out there of including those types of partners? We're contractually allowed in a internal mobility scheme.
I'm not going to steal the mic. I'm just going to have you process that. Those were two great questions. Colleen, you want to start, or?
Sure.
Okay.
So we did two things that I think made a difference in internal mobility. The first was we listened to our employees, and they told us that we had to start at the top. And they wanted to see the very top of the organization agree that we were going to make some movements. We got a new CEO, Ryan Hickey. He's not even at his 1 year anniversary yet, or he might be just beyond a year. And he started there at the very top so people could see that they were very real. We heard from a lot of employees that they, especially women in the organization, that they didn't think the jobs were real even though they were posted. And what we started to say there is that if it's posted, it's real, but we're not going to post every job. We just tell them straight out, like, we are going to be more public about succession planning, and if someone's in a job for 2 years because they're taking over a leadership role, we're not going to post it. The second thing that we did was we also ran a full marketing campaign around getting people to apply for jobs. And we had people talk about their internal mobility and paths that they've gone on. That was great. It wasn't as successful as when a leader got up and pitched their job to the company. And they talked about more of like talent scouting, which I know we're all fans of, which is like, what do these people actually really need to have? Not the, everybody wants to say 5 to 7 years financial services experience. Not that. I'm looking for someone who knows how to motivate people to get the job done type of videos. And that was, the first one went out the week of Christmas, which nobody was even working that week, and it was one of our highest watched videos that we ever had. And I think that helped a lot.
So I've set up my TA organization like a staffing company, and with one client, Southwest Airlines, and we actually do total talent attraction. So we look at the whole ecosystem when we're doing it. We do a lot of silver and gold medalists and that kind of thing. We have a pretty robust internship program. Like I said, now into a high school program. We actually do a summer camp for employees' kids to teach them, to expose them to the world of work at Southwest, because they've grown up loving Southwest, yet they only know what their mom or dad does, and that may not have interested them. So there's that particular piece. And so certainly trying to be able to use that as well. And then to your first question, sometimes you just have to be really honest with some groups and go, you're the farm system, you just deal with it, because you're gonna lose them anyway. And it's better for us to lose them internally than that. And also, you're really gonna lose them if you deny them the opportunity. There's a lot of them that will post something and it's like, yeah, nobody even put in, but had you said they couldn't or we didn't, you would have angered them, right? So I think there's part of it that you just have to be, and you have to send, you're not gonna be one and done with that message either. You're gonna have to continue that piece of it.
So I think it's interesting though, I think the first part of the question around, talent hoarder, talent exporter, as far as leadership, and I think leadership is a crux. I mean, I talked about it yesterday with the people element. We talk about talent, but leaders so often are the bottleneck, or they are the black hole or the black box, because they don't want their people to lead that linear, look at me, I'm great because my people never leave me. And the reality of it is that in this idea of spider web inside of this talent world where people are now defining their own path, I don't want to be told where I want to go, I want to be able to find the great fit for me. It feels to me, and maybe you've dealt with it in your organizations, that transparency, radical ownership of your own data, not allowing leaders to have power, because that's really what it's connotating is, I have power to allow or not allow you to do this thing, and we're saying no, I don't think that's the case anymore. Have you dealt with that so that people are not only, even if you have people that are resisting, leaders that are resisting that idea of being able to move across these, again, false boundaries, they don't have the power anymore to even stop it. Like, their hands are kind of tied.
Yeah, I think, we refer to it now more as a career lattice than a ladder, right? And that, to your point, that ability to spread out. And I think it's very, very important. I think one of the things that happens with leaders, right, and the hoarding of talent is they're just scared of that, the backfill all that piece. And so that's one of the things that we try to adjust to is like, well, so we're gonna start working on your backfill. We actually have a position that just posted that like 3 VPs pinged my boss and said, we already know 20 people from this group have put in for this role, and ultimately it's better. So that's one of the things. It's like, well, why is it better? Think about that and what you can fix. But they're like, we can't afford that to happen. And so I went to my boss and said, okay, this violates our headcount, rec protocol. But if we think that we're going to lose that many from this group, can my team open a rec for those roles now so we can already be hiring their backfills to shorten that? And so that's exactly what we've done.
So confidence in the system too, that's the other thing that leaders start to take the hand off because they really do believe they're going to be backfill for them. Right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Question?
Yeah.
Hey y'all, Mitch Schwartz, US Bank. Just listening to the conversation just spurred something because I did employee experience in a past life with not yet at US Bank. A lot of the conversation around internal movement, but it sounds reactive. So just curious if any of your teams are doing proactive sourcing, so not just someone interested in career mobility or applying. That's a cultural dynamic that I think is a little bit more difficult to tackle, and we do it externally, right? So just curious on the internal piece of it.
Yeah, I'll start and you guys can jump in. So our recruiters can proactively outreach to anyone in the CRM. So that's an employee or that's an external. That definitely was a big change. And when I talked about, sort of we being in lots of different areas of HR, I'll have to add in our HR business partners who are really critical in that process because the business leaders are closest to the HR business partner. So when they're freaking out because a recruiter reached out to them, right, that HR business partner has to then sort of reinforce and say, hey, we've got confidence in the system, we've got confidence that this is going to work and you'll be better off for it. At the end of the day, we can't succeed as a business if we just promote within the same, up and down, right? We have to promote this way in order to win. And we constantly are reinforcing that message. And we're fortunate at Cigna that our executive leadership team really drives that. Half of our C-suite actually grew up in development programs at Cigna, and so they've sat in lots of different areas of the business and understand the value of that. But yeah, that was a big change for us, and that was something that, you know, we were really able to do with the power of Phenom, and it's one of the reasons why we, you know, selected Phenom, because our recruiters can do everything in one place, and so it makes it a lot easier for them. But it's a team sport.
Yeah, one of the things that we're hopefully moving to fairly soon is using the gig capability within Phenom, right? To sit there and go, hey, you've got this, how do we give somebody a hands-on opportunity, right? Because you can teach them, you can do that, but give them that exposure. And it's two ways, right? Because I may, as the leader, I don't know who you are, whatever, but if I get 3 months, I might now, what I might have not taken you on face value or your resume or out of an interview, I've now seen you work. So that's something that we've done. We've actually even done a few of them where we posted the gig and followed all the rules and we sort of made it like an internal temp to hire, if you were, that said, hey, it's got to work out, but if it does, they get moved and converted into the role. It's not, we don't have to go back and repost it. So that's one of the ones that we're trying to do. And then I think too, just, you know, within our talent development space of it, whenever we do, whenever you do, you know, you're looking at your bench or whatever, I think part of the expectation is that on your semi-short list, you have people that don't report to you on there, just to begin that vision piece of it.
And I'm sorry, Phenom, I don't have a Phenom answer. I have another answer, but a few years ago, we launched a program with a crazy name. It's called the 5 to 15 program. And it was a conversation that our now CEO, Ryan Hickey, and I had, and we said, what keeps you up at night? And both of us said, we're losing people that are ready for these big roles in 5 to 15 years. I'm sure it keeps all of you up. And so we started a program where we combined projects and learning over an 8-week period with 3 executive sponsors and 3 teams of 5, one from each of those executive sponsors. And we made it very clear that these are people that we thought were future leaders and that we expected them to find bigger jobs. The statistics on the first class that we did of that, 40% of them have moved into bigger jobs outside of the division where they were in. So I'm sorry, it's not a Phenom answer, it's but at the leadership level, that's been really successful for us. We also have rotation programs that have been very successful. And we kind of went at them backwards. So we said, what's the destination and where would we like you to work before you get to that destination? And we rotate more at the entry level, but we rotate on a 6-month basis through different areas of the company.
My question really is around communication strategies. We've been very, to Mitch's earlier point, transactional. When somebody wants to apply for a job, they go in, they touch the system, they update it, or we're communicating, we're pushing out. But we're kind of hoping for more of a health check mindset, and we're thinking about gigs as well. And we want to get the word out on gigs. We've done a lot of them internal to units, but we want to do more cross-unit. And just kind of curious about that. How do you communicate, especially your workforce? How do you get the word out to people, and then get them to actually, transact on those things?
Yeah, so one of the things that we started doing was what I call the virtual info sessions internally, right? So, hey, have you ever wanted to learn about this kind of role and what they do? And it's exactly that. Will be someone from our career mobility team, usually the recruiter for that work group, and then a couple of the hiring leaders that just talk about the world. People can get in there and ask questions. What's really interesting is when we do it, we'll use the event functionality within Phenom, so we can tag them as well to go, oh, these 50 people listened in on that and that particular piece. So that's one of them that we do. But there's some really big plans as we move into our second year of how the company is going to support us. Because we launched this kind of right at the end of the pandemic, and part of it was like, hey, we've not posted an internal job for 18 months. We've got some people that are probably doing that, and let's kind of be ready for it. And we've got our learning and development. They're going to have some pretty big sessions, company-wide type of things, and the career mobility team is going to get featured in that, which will be both in person and virtual. But that's just some of it of what we've done. Once again, we'll help people build their profile. We actually started with they get a little tagline on day one onboarding, right? So that just on the very first day, they know there's this group that exists.
Hi, Dan Nielsen from Cushman & Wakefield. So I will give a phenom answer, which we did some testing for text to apply, and it was actually a little frightening because we got a lot of responses very quick. We are in an OFCCP regulated environment. Any tips or war stories around controlling the intake of candidates? So for instance, I am playing around with automated shut off, unpost, all that kind of stuff. Do you have some wisdom around that?
We're OFCCP as well, and so one of the things that I've really done is sort of created the separation of church and state, if you will, for my team, and even within the Phenom development team when we talk. But I'm like, Phenom's my playground. Everybody in Phenom is a prospect at that point in time, so we can do anything we want with them. But I will not let my team. I will not let it become or begin to feel at all like an ATS, where decisions are made out of there. We can, like I said, we can highlight, we can do those things, but that's a world I'm not interested in. Because we get to do cool stuff in there, and the moment we start making decisions like that, we do that. But what we have to monitor too, we just recently posted a flight attendant wreck, and the lights flicker in the building because of the number of applications or whatever, and so we work closely. We have Phenom on a high alert, DEFCON 4, alert status when we're doing that to kind of be ready. But that's kind of how we monitor. I don't think we have the same issue internally from the OFCCP, as long as and one of the things that we've committed to as an organization is that all internal positions get posted for 7 business days, period. There's non-negotiable on that, and that just sort of the law, if you will, and that way it's there. And then my team will do promotion. We try to promote ahead of time, so hey, this is coming, right, so that we can catch people, but all the way through it as well.
Awesome. Thank you both very much. I appreciate it. Let's give them a round of applause.